Hello, my name is Monica. It's been a little over 2 months since the last video that I made. At that time, I was beginning to focus on myself and learning the wants and needs that I have been suppressing for years now. um, so, yeah, that's still been really weird. It's been fun in a way, but it's also super uncomfortable to kind of you know I feel put on the spot whenever I get asked, like, what do I want to do, or where do I want to go. It just feels overwhelming some days, so I do struggle with that, but I know that it's going to get to the point where I'm going to feel um, like a normal person. um, or just no guilt, I guess, when focusing on myself. That's really all I want, and I'll get there. Um, I have also been working on healing from the abuse that I endured in my past relationship. I can't diagnose this person. Obviously, I'm not that kind of professional. And so I want to preface that. However, if this person is not a narcissist, they are extremely emotionally immature. And that's just as harmful. Because someone who is not emotionally mature is going to lack accountability, um, and narcissists do as well. The reason why they can't sit with any form of like accountability is because it feels like an attack on their character. um, Narcissists have this like distorted perception of themselves where they're basically defending their ego. Like that's the most important thing to them, because that ego is the image of how they think that people need to see them. So they can't come to terms with being wrong in any way, shape, or form. And so that's why when you come to a narcissist with something that, they hurt you, or they did to you, they caused you harm in some way, and you try to get them to be accountable for it. Why they get so defensive? It is like an attack to them. So this was an issue that I would find in my past relationship quite a bit. Things always ended up coming back to me. I always ended up being the one who was wrong or made the mistake. There was even, I remember this situation because I just thought it was so comical. My ex, like, we'd be ready, going to go get in the car to do something, and we're driving, and he's like, I forgot my sunglasses. And I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, do you want to go, back and get them? So I'm going to, like, repair mode already, and to fix the issue. And he's like, no, like, that's just going to take us more time. And then he's like, well, if you would have not talked to me while he's like, I was going to grab them, but you said something to me and I completely forgot. So it ended up being my fault, that he didn't grab his sunglasses. So, things like that. At the time, I like laughed it off and was like, oh, that's funny that you would even go there. Like, obviously you didn't grab the sunglasses, so you're the one to, be upset with for this mistake. But so that was just like a silly one, but there's other red flags that you should keep in mind. So for instance, if you meet somebody who says my exes are all crazy, that is the biggest one. If there is a fan club, anti fan club out there, of a gaggle of ladies who this person's been with, and that all the ladies hate him, yeah, that's a red flag. uh, Unfortunately, I've always been somebody who gives people the benefit of the doubt. It's something that I didn't realize until too long ago, that it was ingrained by my family system. um yeah, recently I found out that like a family member cheated me. Like, I don't want to say they stole from me or whatever, but it was something having to do with like doing something shady with finances. And so when I talked to my mom about it, she was like, well, they are going through a hard financial time. So she's trying to convince me to give this person the benefit of the doubt of like, they did hurt you, they did cause harm. However, they kind of had a good reason for it. And so if you grow up with that type of mindset, you are going to overlook a lot of red flags of people that are, showing you that they're going to cause you harm in some way, shape, or form, but you're overlooking it because that's what a good person does, right? They overlook people's flaws. Uh, yeah, I don't know about that. So that's definitely, I want to stress that to people. Like, if someone says that all their exes are crazy, please, 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 look into that, because it really could, this person could be telling you that, that there's a reason that they never are in a healthy relationship. You know, because it is much easier to call someone crazy. It discredits the person. Like for instance, even in my own situation, I have seen text messages from my mother to family members telling them that I'm crazy. Um, and this is for me not wanting to go back to my family home and choosing to move to a different state. Um, I mean, yes, she can call it very crazy behavior. However, if anyone were to ask me, I'd tell them, I didn't want to go back to the same environment I was escaping from, uh, and go into, the same environment where I was being belittled, name called, and abused. I did so much work to get out of my romantic relationship. Why would I willingly be in an environment, in my family's home, that was going to, um, end up giving me the same result? So it is much easier for narcissists to call people crazy, just because they don't want to get on board with their own delusion. So that's another thing. My ex had a very like tortured soul vibe as well. So painted himself as like this person who's always been like bullied and victimized, um, who just can never catch a break in life. And that really calls to my compassion, because in a way, I'm kind of like, yeah, I've felt a little bit like an outcast and stuff. And I think everyone deserves love. So why not? So that, and sometimes narcissists will tell you these like really crazy sob stories about themselves just to see how you're going to react. And if you're somebody who's more indifferent, like, oh, that really sucks. Um, well, hopefully your life is going better now. Like, it's not a good target because it's somebody who's not going to sit there and cry with them. Whereas my reaction was like, oh my God, you poor thing. Like, I can't imagine how that was for you. Um, so yeah, that's how he initially got me, I guess you could say, is I let down my defenses thinking that this other person was also a victim, of, other people. So that's kind of how I got swept up into this relationship initially. I started to feel responsible for him, um, not only with his, well, no, with his moods, and the situations that he faced throughout the day. I felt like I had to help him with everything, um, because he seemed so overwhelmed by all of the things that even his own emotions, he seemed overwhelmed by them. So I felt like an emotional manager at some points during our relationship, because there were times where, one time it like stands out in particular. We were getting a rental car, and the location that we were at stated that we couldn't get it there because we needed a credit card and I didn't have one, and that we would have to go to a different location, which means we would need to get an Uber to get to that location. It is annoying, but it's not something that I'm going to, raise hell over. My partner took it upon himself to start yelling at this employee, calling her names, to the point where the employee was like, I'm going to call airport security if you guys don't leave. So we had to leave. This incident ended up being my fault, according to my partner, because he would have not had to step in and act the way that he did if I would have been able to do something, prior to that. So we had to come up with a plan of like, I'd have to like kind of step in and be like, I need to speak to your manager if I felt like somebody was being rude. Um, and also simultaneously, like, try to calm my partner down before he flips a biscuit. So it was just kind of, it was a lot of responsibility on me, as as one person in the relationship. I just felt like the very heavy burden of making sure that he was okay, so that we were okay, ultimately. um and ultimately, what it ended up becoming is a trauma bond. I know that word gets thrown around quite a bit, but I want to kind of explain my personal experience with it, because it's confusing. It doesn't feel this way while you're in it. Now that I'm away from it and I've had a chance to, not be immersed in that environment, and have like an outlook perspective, I understand. I see how we were, you know almost like bonded by, like, our traumatic attachments to our parents. So for me, I do believe I was love bombed at the beginning of this connection. um my partner was like, head over heels for me. Was, he even like wrote me like a little song or whatever. He was like just talking about how, I was this like amazing person that was on this like pedestal. Like, he made me feel like I had never felt before. He made me feel seen and heard like I had never felt before. So um that got me. you know like, I was like, oh, okay, so there is, this type of connection is out there. You just have to find the right person. So that's what I thought in my head. And so in this bond, this trauma bond, that is what you're chasing the whole relationship. So that feeling at the very beginning of the relationship, how they make you feel, that's what you want. So you endure all of these shitty days, all of the fights, all of the back and forth, the push and pull dynamic. You endure all of that because you're hoping that if you get things right, that you'll get to that wonderful part at the very beginning of the relationship. Like, that's your little, carrot on the stick that's being dangled in front of you, is that eventually you'll get to that beautiful point in your relationship again where they idealize you and they love you and you can do no wrong. However, that's not how relationships with narcissistic people work. Their relationships move backwards. So they start with you being on this pedestal, being like the object of their affection, and the longer you stay in the relationship, like the more you get torn down essentially from that pedestal that they had put you on. So that's the dynamic that they're setting up for you. You don't know that. You don't know that at all. You think that you're going to, have this wonderful shot at love, with this person who, loves you intensely and you love them intensely. Um, and you guys are going to be, together forever, and it's going to be hard, but one day things will get easier. So that's kind of how I felt about it. I felt like the harder I tried, to do right by this relationship, that it will eventually get to a point where it's beautiful, it's healthy, it's loving, it's caring, because those aspects were sprinkled throughout the relationship. Like when we were good, he would make me feel like super loved. To the point where other people would, maybe a little excessive, but that's what I was used to. That's what I was addicted to, is at the end of the day, like being like loved that much by another person. Of course, I wasn't aware that it wasn't healthy. It's just kind of like what reminded me of my childhood, which is basically that there's this one person who I'm trying to please. I'm trying to do everything that I can right, so that they will, bond with me, essentially, and not cut me out, or become cold with me because I don't do what they want. You know what I mean? So it kind of triggered that, and that's the part that was a trauma bond. Is I'm reliving the situation that I had with my caretaker, with my partner now, is I'm trying to get them to accept me and to give me the love and acceptance that my caretaker maybe never gave me. um, Another connection there as well is, there's a term that's it's the benevolent narcissist. So this approach feels a lot like it's it is control, like they are trying to control you, but they're disguising it as like care. So they'll like basically they'll make it so, like, if you try to do something, they'll be like, do you think that's the best idea with with how you were feeling the other day? Do you think going out with your friends is the best idea? And so it'll sound like, oh, you're right. Like it'll sound like they genuinely care, or that they're watching out for you. But the way that they use it is what's wrong. So a lot of the times they're trying to, so for instance, with my family, my ex did not like them. So he would, tell me like, hey, last time you were over there, you were bothered by something that your family member said. Like, are you sure you really want to be around your family members, especially because you've been so anxious lately? So, like, he was using my mental health to kind of like guide how, oh, well, you were really anxious the other day, like maybe you shouldn't go out and be with your family. They'll probably make you more anxious. So it's like using this information that does kind of feel like they genuinely care, to control what you end up doing. So there were even times where, like for instance, um, I change my hair all the time, and my ex would tell me that there are specific colors that when I have them in my hair, such as red or orange, that I become very combative and fiery, defiant, or whatever. So he would tell me, it's best for you not to put those colors in your hair if you're trying to, stay away from those energies. And so it sounds like, some like spiritual, uh, belief that hair colors attract certain aspects, of your personal. Like it sounds meh, but at the end of the day, he just didn't want me to dye my hair those colors. Um, he also would, like, he didn't like short hair on women, and he'd make it. He never straight up told me, this is kind of coercive control as well. He never straight up told me not to do that, not to, cut my hair or dye my hair those colors. But he would, if he saw it on, like, if he saw short hair on a lady in the street, he'd be like, oh, that looks so bad on her. It looks so ugly. I hate when women have short hair. So it's like, if you're trying to keep the peace, and your partner just said that they dislike something, you're like, well, I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? So it's not, again, it's not like they're stopping you from doing it, but they're telling you, like, if you do this thing, I'm going to make it very difficult for you, or very awkward for you. Um, because there was a time when I had my hair pinned up, and he thought I cut it. And he was like, "Oh my god, did you cut your hair?" And I was like, "No, look, it's pinned up." And I showed it to him, and he's like, "Oh, thank God," that would have been so bad. Like you would have looked just so bad. So it's there's this feeling of like they know best. And I remember when I was in the relationship, I would tell him, like sometimes you talk to me like I'm your kid and like you know better than I do. And he would, just completely like disregard it. But when I was reading about this, like kind of architect of the benevolent narcissist, it really kind of like woke me up to the fact that I was catching on to something. I was catching on to him basically trying to control the things that I did or didn't do using um the supposed like I care about you type of approach, which I want to say that my mother does that as well. And a lot of people don't catch it. But so for instance, um one of my family members was telling me like it's not like your mom's been asking about you. And that is true. That is true. What she does instead is like, "Oh, I'm so worried about my daughter. Like I just haven't heard anything from her. I hope she's okay." And so my family members will see that and be like, "Oh, let me find out." So they'll go and find out. Like you just gave my mom the information that she wanted without her having to ask you for it. You know what I mean? So, and that's the type of manipulation that I think none of my family understands or sees because, yeah, again, this type of narcissist is somebody who just appears to be just, caring and just trying to do the right thing, trying to make sure that your life is good and that you're safe because they know best, right? Um, there's actually a quote by Carl Jung. The most dangerous thing is a man who thinks he knows what's best for you. And that's the thing that I've never understood trying to control someone. Bend them to your whim to what you think is best for them. Like at the end of the day, that's their life. Why are you putting so much emphasis on trying to control someone as opposed to just letting them, you know, live? And then you mind your own business and think, focus on your life. I don't understand why it's done, but I have been a victim of it. So I did want to share that just because of the fact that this one's hard. It really feels like their logic surpasses yours, and that you always have to look for their approval because there comes a point where you start to like run everything by them. And I remember that I used to get kind of like knots in my stomach whenever I'd have to go tell my partner like that I'm hanging out with some friends or seeing my family because he would kind of give me some form of like pushback for each one, so sometimes I was even like I don't even think it's worth like um asking him or talking to him about this just because I already know that he's going to give me some pushback on something that I wanted to do that really would have not harmed him or anyone. But it's just yeah, there's just that's been hard. And the thing about this type of connection is you realize that your needs create disconnection in the relationship. A lot of the times when he would give me some form of pushback with a request that I was making, I'd feel like kind of compelled to also give pushback. Um, and so it could create like an argument or just like he could be a little colder afterwards because you chose to disagree with him. So you start to learn that you standing up for yourself creates that sort of disconnected vibe, and that if you self abandon, it creates peace in the relationship. So you do start to abandon yourself, your needs, your wants, in order to continue this connection. Um, and for someone who already doesn't know what their wants and needs are, it's already really it's you're used to shrinking. You know what I mean? So um it's not completely unheard of, I guess, to us. With coercive control, it does not look like abuse. If anything, it doesn't look like anyone is controlling you. It looks like you're doing it to yourself. Um, in reality, what's happening is your partner is teaching you about things that they like and dislike. And as you're starting to learn those things, you start to kind of monitor what you say, your tone, the words that you use. It is like the stepping on, or sorry, walking on eggshells type of situation. So you do everything that you can to not upset them. And some of the I had this desperation in my relationship at a certain point because I would need to bring something up to him. And as I brought it up to him, he would become upset about it. And I was like, man, like how do I bring this up to you without you getting upset again? Like we need to be able to talk about certain things without having this like big old, fight ensue. So he was like, okay, well, next time make sure to bring it earlier to me in the day, like, on a day that I don't have to work, where, and try to say it in a tone like this. So he gave me instructions basically. So I go and I do those things the next time. That doesn't work out either. And so I'm like, hey, come on, give me some more feedback because this isn't working. Like, you need to tell me the formula of like how I can like give you this information without you getting upset. So he gives me more instructions. I come back, I do the same thing, and that doesn't work out either. So I do remember vocalizing, like, man, I don't really ever know when I'm going to get this right with you. It seems like everything that I do just doesn't work. And that was a big old red flag for anyone that was outside of the relationship and saw that interaction. They would have been like, my dear, um, that is called moving the goalpost. So they literally like they tell you like, oh yeah, if you just do A, B, and C like this, we'll be golden. And then you do it, and then they're moving it back and further back and further back. So you're never ever going to please them. But that's what they need in order to keep the dynamic going, right? Like if you did please them and they were finally happy, then the relationship would be healthy, right? But that's not the dynamic in a relationship with a toxic person or an emotionally mature person. In a way, it's like they want to hold on to you, but they don't know how to do it in a healthy way. So they do it in this like really sneaky, manipulative way that causes harm to everyone involved. But again, it's not like if they actually went and did the work in therapy to undo all of these things, like I'm sure they could get it, you know, to happen. However, with a lot of narcissists, they're not willing to let down that wall um, of shame and guilt long enough to actually heal. Uh, so it's just a very aggressive defense mechanism that they hold on to. And it sucks because that's how they lose every relationship and how they will continue to lose every relationship. Um, Going back to my own experiences here with the coercive control. So before meeting my ex, I was mostly just eating, like when it came to meat, fish. There was other times where I would eat like specific things that I wanted. But when I got with my ex, he made it very clear that he had been a vegetarian for plus 20 years and wanted to keep it that way. He never told me that I shouldn't eat meat. What started to happen is every time I did eat meat, he would be very disapproving about it, whether it be just like a look, or sometimes I would get like a lecture about how harmful it was to, spiritually eat animals. And so it just got to the point where I started to eat meat in secret. Like when I knew we weren't going to have lunch together, or if I was like out with coworkers and I was getting lunch with them, like I would eat meat and I wouldn't tell him about it, because if there was one time where I tried it, where I was like, let's just see if he's still weird about it. He was like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that you would do something like that. So um again, it's that whole like thinking that he knows better, and that his like his perception, like his ideas of the world are just, you know, they're better than mine. And I'm just an unfortunate person who does not have this information that he has. So so that's another one. Again, it's not like he told me that I couldn't eat meat, but he made it really weird. And that is kind of what coercive control is like you start to understand that keeping the peace is the most important thing in the relationship. So a lot of things about yourself start to either fuse to their personality or shrink completely. Um, Especially when your needs are chronically dismissed. So there were times where I would, well, because, okay, so every day there was something that was going on with him. And so it would be a me and him thing of like, oh well, let's it's got to do whatever we can to cheer this guy up or whatever. And so my feelings, whatever was going on with me, my issues were put on the back burner, um, because there was just no room for them. And I do remember him telling my therapist, or sorry, our therapist, our marriage therapist, that he felt like he was in competition with me. I didn't understand the statement at the time, and neither did she. But now looking at it, it's like, oh, okay, that's why I shouldn't have my own wants and needs, is because at the end of the day, we're just focusing on him. And if I have any wants and needs, I'm in competition with him, and the attention that he craves so much. So I did now. There's a lot of things that I'm starting to kind of understand now about the dynamic, and just a silly little story that you know from my childhood. When I was younger, my like very young, my mom would be wanting me to finish my food, and if I didn't want to eat something, she would say, you're going to hurt your food's feelings. It's going to cry. Is that what you want to do? So, as silly as this little thing was, it does teach you as a child that your feelings matter last, and the feelings of everyone else are more important than yours, including inanimate objects such as food. Um, so that's something that I think, it's very silly. It's very like, minuscule or whatever. But at the same time, it definitely left a little bit of an impression on me that I should be so compassionate that I only think about um, the comfort, the wants and the needs of other people, and mine is always put on the back burner. So there's parallels that I'm starting to notice between um, how I grew up and the relationship that I stayed in for almost 5.5 years. I'm not in any way, shape, or form blaming my parents for this relationship that I put myself in. I'm just drawing parallels in kind of why I ended up staying so long, like why some of these things were normalized, and I didn't see, or I didn't realize. So um I also wanted to um communicate that the autism assessment that I took, the reason I took that is because my ex-partner was actually trying to um paint that I was not actually diagnosed as having bipolar disorder too. So he suggested that I take an assessment, and I did it, because I wanted to prove to him, like, sir, um, I was diagnosed with this mental illness due to the fact that I've met with psychiatrists and was evaluated by them. But I'll do that. I will do this thing, and I did, and it I was negative. I do not have autism. I was told that I excelled in the portion of the test where you have to distinguish people's like faces with the emotion that they're feeling. I've always been pretty good at reading people's social cues. So yeah. So that was something that they said I scored very highly in. And yeah, there was nothing else that really, um, you know, yeah, there was nothing in the assessment that I did really well on. Especially the math and science portion of it. However, I did give him that information because I wanted him to know, like, look, you can't use this as an excuse anymore that I'm this autistic individual who is on the wrong medication for an illness I don't have. Like, you can't use that as an excuse anymore. And honestly, I don't regret doing that. However, if you are in a relationship with a narcissist and you're trying to disengage from them, I know it's hard not to, but no reaction is the best kind of reaction. Um, so I'm going to keep making these videos just because, again, I'm realizing that there's a lot of things that I overlooked initially that are red flags that I could share with others. So that you don't end up in a relationship like this. And there are, I guess, tactics that I could talk about as well for how I handle maneuvering through toxic relationships, or relationships with toxic people that you have to engage with because you have no choice, because there may be like immediate family that you can't get away from, or a coworker or a roommate, whatever it is. But I'm going to be kind of just doing more research on some of the ways to deflect that type of person so that you don't end up with a person like that, like willingly in your life, because these people have done a lot of, sorry, I have allowed these people to do a lot of damage to me in the name of me being a, compassionate, bleeding heart. Um, Now that I'm focusing on myself and putting myself first, I am realizing that the access that I give to people should be more limited, and I should be protecting myself more. Like I said, there's a lot of people on this, earth, and it's not like we have to engage with each one of them, and it's not like we're expected to have a relationship with each one of them. So even if you even if your whole family is toxic, um there's still going to be other people in, on earth that are going to be on the same um like wavelength as you, even if your family is totally not. Even if the people around you are not, you're going to find your tribe. You're going to find people who are on the same spectrum of beliefs. So that's something that I'm currently working on as well, is trying to connect with people who are worthy of the energy I know that I put out there. Because I know that I have a big heart, and that I need to guard the people that I open it to, and the amount of energy and time that I give to certain people. Um, I'm starting to learn that now. Uh, I wish I would have known it when I was younger. However, I feel like I had to endure um, all of these situations that I put myself in, ultimately, to grow as a person and to almost get tired of being mistreated. Um, I think that had to happen for me to make any form of change. Otherwise, I would still continue to be this um, like naive girl who just believes the best of everyone. It did not. It was a good. We had a good run. However, it is not. Um, it's not safe to do that anymore. And in this portion of my lifetime, I am looking to have um, just general peace and just a sense of wholeness, in myself. And that means accepting my good and bad qualities, uh, strengthening the good qualities, and working through the bad qualities to hopefully make them into strengths eventually. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I will be making more videos about specific things. I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of an update of where things are at. So yeah, thank you, and I love you.